What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 39 of the Hoop Venue podcast. My name is Tyler, and as always, I'm joined by my great friend Sean. If you listened to yesterday's episode, we did a kind of a rundown, initial reactions to the first game or two of the Western Conference first round. And today we're going to be basically repeating ourselves, but for the Eastern Conference. We're going to be doing our initial reaction to the first or second games, whatever the case may be. By the time we're recording this, I think we are like an hour removed from both Celtics Magic game 2 and Heat Cavs game 2. So both of those we've only seen one. We've seen 2 games of Knicks Pistons, and we've seen 2 games of Pacers Bucks. Sean, I'll just give you the floor, man. Like, where do you want to go with this conversation, and what have been your strongest feelings about the Eastern Conference first round?
My two strongest feelings so far in terms of the Eastern Conference start off with what I think has the potential. I've kind of gassed this potential series up a few times, is between the 50-win Indiana Pacers and the 64-win Cleveland Cavaliers. Both of those teams have looked really, really good. Cavs play game 2 tonight at the time of this recording. They won game 1. I think they won by 20 exactly, or it was either 126-101 or like 121-101. Honestly, forgot the score. And then the Pacers. And I guess for me, honestly, it's some like reassurance, I guess, with both of those teams. And the thing that I've said about the Pacers all year long is how like they can just overwhelm you with offensive talent. I think there's nobody in the league that could do that more than the Cleveland Cavaliers. Yeah. Where the Cavs in game 1, Ty Jerome has one of the most craziest playoff debuts for any bench player literally in NBA history. And then to the point where it almost feels like the fact that Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland both having really, really good playoff games as well, like just completely flew under the radar because of what Ty was able to do. And mind you, as I'm like really quickly, it's not like Evan Mobley had the best offensive performance. Evan Mobley had 9 points, shot 4 for 10. Jared Allen had a double-double. But on any given night, they have like 3 to 5 guys on this team that can legitimately like be 20-point threats. Yeah. Strus can get hot. DeAndre Hunter didn't score. He went 0 for 4 in game 1. The level of just the amount of offensive talent that the Cavs can deploy in any lineup basically is insane. And then with the Pacers, in that series, I think it's a little bit more interesting to talk about. So if you want to save like the Pacers stuff for when we get to that series, but it's just like more, like I said, reassurance about like the Pacers are for real, and they like. I mean, hell, I might even be underrating them. You had them 5th. I had them 8th.
I had them 5th. On my contenders list, which was kind of absurd and maybe the highest of any person on the planet. I actually have an aunt. I have an aunt who's a big Pacers fan. She's from Indianapolis. She's a huge Pacers fan. And I just saw her over Easter weekend. And she was like, hey, well, like, because everyone kind of knows what I do. And she was like, what are your thoughts on the Pacers? And I was like, oh, don't even get me started. Like, that team, that's a special team. I actually had them 5th in the league in terms of contenders. I'll wait for that discussion, though. I want to go back to Cavs Heat. And I really like the point you brought up about the amount of lineups they can field out that are just super talented offensively. Do you have any idea what their offensive rating in game 1 was?
In the half court?
Just in general, offensive rating.
135.
137.5, so that's actually a really good guess. 137.5 is absolutely ridiculous. As a team, they shot 60% from 2 and 42% from 3, 64% true shooting. As a team is just absolutely crazy. And my big takeaway is, like you said, DeAndre Hunter, 0 points. Sam Merrill, 6 points. Jared Allen and Mobley combined 21 points. Strus, 9 points. So that's like, 5 legit offensive threats who basically like didn't perform up to par. And they still end up with a 137 offensive rating because Jerome, Garland, and Mitchell become the first guard trio ever to all score 27 or more points in a playoff game. Just absolutely absurd. We've been singing Ty Jerome's praises start to finish this season. We have both had him as a 6th Man of the Year finalist, and he actually was a 6th Man of the Year finalist, which Pritchard ended up winning. But yeah, Ty Jerome, like, the ability to operate out of the pick and roll off of ball screens, the ability to play with pace, but then pair that with these sneaky deceleration floaters that are kind of just automatic. Like, I don't know what he's shooting on floaters this season, but I know it's crazy. They're shooting like 40% on pull-up threes in the season or something like that. I think he's shooting 44% from three overall, so he's also a catch-and-shoot threat. Just like this super dynamic offensive player who plays at a really weird pace that's a lot different from what you see with Garland and Mitchell, who are looking to operate in a traditional sense, where it's like, okay, I'm going to come off of this pick and roll. I'm going to assess my coverage. I'm going to play patient. I'm going to take what the defense gives me. Whereas Jerome's like, all right, I'm going to push the ball really fast, double drag, and then I'm going to sprint into a floater. And it's like, what do you do with that? Because you overplay the floater. Now he's stopping for a pull-up three, or he's getting his teammates involved. By the way, never turns the ball over. So one of those guys where you're getting a shot if he's handling the ball. Yeah, I just think like that three-headed snake at the guard position. And I also think like a lot of one of the big things that people didn't consider when they traded for DeAndre Hunter is getting Karis LeVert off of the rotation is like kind of the Norman Powell addition by subtraction thing, because all of those touches are now going to Ty Jerome. And he's just a really, really good on-ball player. You're making a face like you want to drop a stat on me.
Keep going.
Keep going? Okay. So yeah, Ty Jerome, that's just where I wanted to go with that. Ty Jerome, absolutely phenomenal bench piece. And you always are going to have him in lineups with Mitchell or Garland as like a staggering type of thing. So at all points, all 48 minutes, we've kind of talked about one of their superpowers being that they always have a starting level center for all 48 minutes because Mobley and Allen are staggering. The other superpower is that they always have two elite pick and roll ball handlers on the court, whether it's Mitchell and Garland, whether it's Garland and Jerome, whether it's Mitchell and Jerome, or dare I say, whether it's all three on the court at the same time. You have just a bunch of elite pick and roll creation. And then you also have movement shooters in Strus and Merrill. You have a guy in Hunter who's capable of scoring 20 off of off-screen action. He can do some pick and roll stuff. He can attack mismatches out of isolation. He can play off of closeouts. Mobley can run the offense as a point center. They just have so much offensive firepower. They have so many ways to beat you. And yeah, I didn't really take much away from game one outside of the fact that that was a pretty typical 1 versus 8 matchup. It's like kind of fake close most of the game, and then the number one seed steps on the gas and just pulls away in the fourth.
Can you guess what Ty Jerome is shooting on floaters this season?
I would, like, my mind when I was thinking about it was like 56%.
Please go higher.
60?
61.9% on
That's
floaters
like
this
Jokic.
season.
That's like, what's Jokic shooting?
I'm scared to look. I'll check later. Ty Jerome is shooting 60. By the way, Ty Jerome is also shooting in the regular season. He took 176 floaters this season.
Yeah, that's like his thing.
Insane
That's
volume.
his thing. Yeah, that's his thing.
That's stupid volume. So 62% on floaters, 43% on pull-up threes, 46% on catch-and-shoot threes. While also being, like you said, a guy that just doesn't turn the ball over. And really good feel for, in pick and roll and his creation ability. We talked about heading into the series, like, okay, can Garland kind of like get back into form? Where the last month of the year he kind of took a step backwards, and I think that's why you left him off All NBA, if I remember correctly, because of how he finished off the season. I'm curious to see how Miami plays game 2, actually. And while really quickly shifting on the topic of Miami, shout out Davion Mitchell.
Yeah.
Shout out Davion Mitchell. He's hooping recently.
Also,
bro.
like, we kind of talked about it. I had the Heat stealing a game in this series, and I still feel like they can. And kind of one of my points that we saw was like the Bam and Khalil Ware like pairing kind of neutralizes Mobley and Allen as offensive threats in a way. So, and I feel like that kind of showed up, like holding Mobley to 9 points, holding Allen to 12 points. Like, that's good. It's just, okay, now what do we do with 27, 28, and 30 from the guards? Not really much you can do there.
The night Strus hits 4 threes, or when DeAndre Hunter pops off for 15 or 20 off the bench. Yeah, I was going to ask you, I'm glad you said that, because I still think, and this is maybe just me giving Spo ultimate credit, like, I still think they probably eke out one win somehow.
Like a game 3 in Miami or something like that. I feel like
a game 4 to avoid the sweep or something like that.
But it wouldn't surprise me if the Cavs just do what they did 4 times. That also wouldn't, that scenario wouldn't surprise me at all. Now we can move on to Pacers Bucks, unless you have anything else to add on Cavs Heat.
No.
Okay, Pacers Bucks. Yeah, I feel like we kind of this was the series where I feel like we were the most accurate in terms of what we projected to happen through 2 games, where it
Yeah.
was like, okay, they're going to put Brook Lopez in ball screen action every single time down the court and make him defend in space.
Yep.
And it was like Miles Turner had a huge game 1 right off the rip. Tyrese Halliburton has been shooting poor. He had a really poor shooting game 1. But like, I had a tweet during game 1 where I was like, Halliburton's such a unique player because usually when we go like stats don't tell the whole story, we're talking about defensive guys like Draymond Green. You look at his box score, that does not tell the story of his impact. Same with Rudy Gobert. Even in this series, the box score is not telling you the impact he's having on the defense. But Tyrese Halliburton's the one guy I can think of that's very offense centric, and he can have like 10 points and 9 assists, but still have like MVP type of impact just because he's going to make the right decision with the ball every time. And it feels like every single time he passes the ball, the Pacers have an advantage. So it's like pick and pop. Lopez, what are you going to do? Are you going to drop to Halliburton because I'm just going to hit the pop then? Is it I'm going to stay home on the pop and we're going to send help from somewhere else? Now it's a skip pass to a shooter. Are you going to switch? Now I'm going to back it up and I'm either going to play in isolation or I'm going to wait for that other mismatch to materialize because either Turner, Siakam, Toppin, all of those guys can attack mismatches if it's a guard on them. And the Bucks actually did try switching a lot in game 2. I think they switched on over half of the ball screens. I think there was a stat on Twitter floating around. They switched on like 52% of ball screens or something like that. And the Pacers generated like a 120 offensive rating off of those plays. So it was like, basically, both of our, and we can just keep it on the Pacers side for now before going on with the Bucks. We both picked the Pacers to win this series just off of the backs of like, no matter what the Bucks try to do with their lineups or their coverages or whatever, they just simply cannot slow down Indiana's offense.
Yeah, at its core, they just can't slow them down. Andrew Nembhard's just a playoff riser. I love Andrew Nembhard. He's got to be like one of the 5 best screen navigators in the league.
He's up there.
Like, I think it just purely because it's not even like athleticism. Honestly, I think his technique is like damn near perfect. Like in terms of like getting skinny, but also like staying in front and not me getting skinny. And okay, so a lot of times I think you'll see players when they're trying to fight over the top of the screen, they'll take this perfect example. Max Christie did this a ton, especially like earlier on in his career. He would take this half step out to avoid it, which would just lead to me being able to walk into a pull up 3 because you're taking this extra step to try to get back in the play. Nembhard's just immediately going to like get on your hip and then also at the same time just stay in front of you. Yeah. And I thought he did a really good job on Dame. And the Pacers, although they have absolutely no shot of guarding Giannis, and Giannis just continues to reinforce that, and that's another thing we talked about heading into the series, they have a couple, like, good options for Dame. Like, I feel fine with both Nembhard and Aaron Nesmith with Dame.
I also feel okay with TJ McConnell because of his ball pressure. That's another guy that I'm, like, okay with.
Yeah, TJ's even fine. And we'll get to Milwaukee later, but I think Indiana's kind of like, look, it doesn't matter what Milwaukee does with Giannis. Like, they've used him as a screener, and he is just able to roll and be a freak athlete at the rim. They used him as a post-up operator. He's just able to – the fact that he's, like, shooting, 40+% on pull-up middies this season also just changes the whole game for Milwaukee's offensively. They've used him as a pick-and-roll ball handler. It doesn't matter. He's just going to be able to create space and get downhill. I think they tried switching a couple times. There's one specific possession where Indiana switched it and tried to zone up or like be heavy in the gap and basically shell defense. And he just took one dribble, spin back right. It was already at the rim. It just didn't matter.
Yeah.
He's obviously going to get like 8 to 10 points on the board. He's going to get like 6 points of transition. So there's nothing you can do with Giannis. But I think Indiana's like, okay, cool. We're just going to like concede Giannis getting 40 and none of these other guys are going to do anything. Halliburton's awesome. It's not even like the scoring or I thought he was a lot better in game 2 scoring wise, obviously. Definitely. I think he's looked fine it's not like a burst thing anymore. It doesn't look like he's hurt. It just looks like the shot just isn't falling, which okay, it's cool. Like, we'll be all right.
Yeah, he's shooting like 17% on threes or something like that. And that's obviously just going to progress to the mean.
Yeah.
And then he's back to normal levels because the 3-point volume carries his scoring efficiency. So if he has a couple of off shooting nights, yes, it's going to look rough on the box score. But as soon as that swings in the right direction, now we're looking at the Halliburton from last year. Like, remember, this is exactly how he started last year's series. And everyone was getting their talking points off and saying that he was like the most overrated player. And then he just blitzed the rest of the playoffs until the conference finals. Just the hot shooting night after hot shooting night, especially in that New York series. So yeah, I think Halliburton's looked really, really good.
1 for 6 on pick and roll 3 so far. We're in the regular season. Halliburton on pick and roll 3 shot 39%.
Yeah. So yeah, that's basically right there. You just make 2 of those, and all of a sudden you're shooting 50% on pick and roll threes.
Yeah.
Back to the Nembhard point though, he just adds another layer to this offense because you can't, like, a lot of what the Bucks were trying to do in Game 2 just got picked apart. Like for example, they were looking to switch everything. And the Pacers were like, okay, let's get Giannis onto Nembhard. Now you don't have your roamer. And, oh, by the way, Nembhard can beat Giannis consistently. Like, there were like 3 possessions in a row in the fourth where he easily got around Giannis. And at the end, actually, Giannis just had to wrap him up and intentionally foul him because he couldn't stay in front of Nembhard. And Nembhard's just a very skilled creator in that way. Like, his one weakness is that, yes, he shot 29% from 3 this season, but between the ball handling, the start and stop game, the shoulder bumps and the deceleration, the mid-range game, the floater.
I'm so glad you touched on
like
that.
he's just such a skilled inside the arc scorer. He's almost like, when I watch him, it's like this great value SGA. Like, that's the way he operates. Like, that's really, he has like the same kind of points of operation, and he's really tough to stay in front of. He's really tough to stick with when he throws that shoulder. So you kind of you run into this problem where, okay, Giannis is switching on to him. Now he can't protect the rim in these lineups that don't have Brook Lopez on the court. Where's your rim protection going to come from? Bobby Portis? And shout out to Bobby Portis. He had one big stop on Siakam at the rim in the fourth quarter. He had like 11 rebounds, and he was huge offensively. Like, they found a lot of offense off that pick and pop and things like that. He had like 25 points in Game 2, so shout out to Bobby Portis. He was really, really good. They also got some good minutes from Kuzma in the third, just getting downhill. He had like 3 or 4 transition layups in a row, just forcing into the defense. And the Bucks offense has been fine. They've been fine for the most part. I think the one thing the Pacers have done really well, like you said, handled Dame in Game 2. They've been good at the point of attack against guards. I also think they've done a good job of like shrinking the floor on Giannis without giving up easy spot up threes. Like, Giannis is only averaging 4 assists a game in the series and 4.5 turnovers. You're absolutely living with that. And then Giannis just killing you as a scorer, because we kind of talked about, even if you shrink the floor on Giannis, like, he's averaging 5 offensive rebounds. You might as well just chalk those in as putbacks. He's getting easy points in transition. He's playing out of the post and just bullying whoever's on him. Giannis is averaging 35 points a game and shooting 68% from 2. And the Pacers are up 2-0 because they just have so many offensive weapons. I don't think Brook Lopez can really stay on the floor for more than like 5-minute stretches in this series. Same thing. I mean, you struggle with Portis at the 5-2 because he also can struggle covering space, because also the Pacers' pace, man, the pace they play with, like, they're just up and down, up and down. The Bucks can't keep up. And then you run into these problems where you start switching, where not only are you getting Giannis onto guards and pulling him out of the paint, what do you do when Siakam has, like, Siakam has AJ Green in the post? Siakam this year as a post scorer, so I don't have the numbers including passes, as a post scorer generated 1.08 points per possession. That's amazing half court offense. Siakam's one of the most efficient post scorers in the NBA. By the way, I'd like to throw this at you. Do you know, I remember Siakam's post-ups being one of their biggest forms of offense in last year's playoffs. Against both the Knicks and the Bucks in the first round. They were just feeding Siakam in the post. Do you have any idea what Siakam's points per possession were in the post in last year's playoffs?
Just him as a scorer, or including pass outs?
As a scorer.
Okay, really quickly. I'm going to look. Okay, this year. All right. 1.105.
4.4 points a game over 17 games. So we're talking about a decent sample. 1.36 points per possession.
Sheesh.
That is absurd.
By the way,
absurd.
Including pass outs in the regular season, 1.1 1 points per possession.
So we're talking about one of the best post-up options in the league. And if you're letting him get a mismatch onto AJ Green or Kevin Porter Jr. or even Taurean Prince is a mismatch, that little like short mid-range or I'm going to spin or I'm going to draw a foul, he's really good at drawing fouls out of the post. Yeah, I just think that the Pacers have too many weapons, and this loops back into the Pacers-Cavs conversation. That I don't even want to say that's going to be a series because I don't want to chalk up and say the Pacers series is over just because they're up 2-0. But my initial prediction was Pacers in 6, maybe Pacers in 5. And I still feel I probably would go Pacers in 5 at this point. Yeah, I'm anticipating a Pacers-Cavs series, and I cannot wait for that matchup offensively because that'll just be a chess match.
Yeah. Last few points for me on the Pacers, and really quickly touching on Siakam. He's just legitimately one of the more versatile players offensively in the league in terms of like play type and situation you could put him in to be effective as an offensive player, which I think is really, really cool and really, really important for this Pacers offense to just have that. And I think that's honestly something that a lot of these guys, and that's what makes them, obviously Halliburton as the engine and Halliburton's ability to just guarantee a shot. But I think all these guys be able to be somewhat versatile offensively while also being able to just legitimately like make plays off the catch and be somewhat good to great depending on the player. Second side creators to second side decision makers is super important. And secondly, I got fish fried on Twitter mainly, so it's Twitter, take it with a grain of salt. So for saying that the Nembhard contract when it happened was one of the best contracts in the league. Because you're looking at a guy that's got a 3-year deal for, I think it's basically $60 million, making 18.1, 19.5, and $20.9 million over 3 years. Saying that's like legitimately one of the better contracts in the league. And sure, he wound up only averaging, 10 points per game this season. He was a 9-point-per-game scorer last season. But he's a guy that, in the playoffs, I think legitimately at this point is a playoff riser.
Yeah.
And it's an 82-game player that can play the two, hide some of the stuff that Halliburton doesn't do well, specifically defensively, be one of the better point of attack options in the entire league. And, okay, cool, the 3-ball isn't consistent for him at all, but literally almost everything else offensively he does at a super high level and a super functional level to where, that's one of the better contracts in the league. And then in the playoffs, he just turns into a really, really, high-level shot maker. So, Andrew Nembhard's awesome.
Yeah, Nembhard's amazing. Siakam's really good. Halliburton's been awesome. Miles Turner's really good. Aaron Nesmith's been awesome on both ends.
I love Aaron Nesmith.
Dude, this is just a really freaking good team, man. That's really what it comes down to. So let me ask you this then. Down 0-2, going back to Milwaukee, what do you think is the best pathway to the Bucks stealing game 3 and 4 and tying up the series? Lineup, is it a lineup adjustment? Is it a coaching adjustment? Is it a defensive scheme? What are you doing? What are you doing if you're Doc Rivers?
What am I doing if I'm Doc Rivers?
Yeah.
Truth be told, the first thing that came to my mind is just you try to outgun them, honestly.
Yeah. That's kind of where my head was at too, because there's no scenario where you're meaningfully stopping them.
Yeah. And I think you threw out a lineup when we were previewing the series, when we were kind of talking about the possibility of Dame coming back, of it being Dame at the 1, Giannis at the 5, and you basically is just fill the holes in wherever you can, Dame, AJ Green.
Probably KPJ
or
or Gary Trent.
This Bucks team isn't good.
Yeah, I mean, so I asked people, I was in my comment, there were Bucks fans in my replies on Twitter last night, basically saying, I'm tired of people framing this as a lopsided series. If Doc Rivers would just simply make the right adjustments, we have the advantage, and that's the only thing holding us back. So I flipped it back. I was like, what would you do? What would you do if you were the Bucks coach? What would you do? And they all kind of had similar answers. It was, they all wanted a lineup with Giannis and Bobby and then 3 guards. It was Dame, AJ, KPJ, and then Bobby, Giannis. And they were we are going to switch everything 1 through 5, and then we're going to scram out of the post every single time. Because that's what they did last year. They didn't switch everything, but they switched most of the post ups last year in the first round. And it's okay, my initial takeaway was, what do you do against Siakam inverted pick and roll with a guard now? Because you can't scram that. You can't.
I mean, like,
and also, do you trust the Bucks defense? Because scram switching requires perfect execution. Like, you have to have really good. Like the Bucks, do you trust a scram switch between Damian Lillard and Bobby Portis against a team with 5 ball handlers and good decision makers? They're gonna find something.
Even if you pre-switch the like inverted pick and roll, like, okay, do I trust the Bucks to be able to like any defense? That's why I'm saying, like, I don't think it's a defensive adjustment.
Right. It's a personnel issue.
It's a personnel issue. I'm almost conceding the fact that we cannot stop them.
Yeah.
Now, if you were switching, like, the switching in theory works, but like we're switching and still getting beat, and then it causes us to rotate regardless, then like it doesn't matter.
And that's what I'm thinking. Like, I'm thinking basically the Pacers would just put the ball in either the hands of Halliburton or Andrew Nembhard and say, go get Portis and just play one-on-one. We'll 5 out.
Yeah.
Like, and also the other thing I brought up is like the way scram switching works. Usually it comes from the weak side corner, right? Like, you're going to drop, or even the strong side corner. I feel like it usually comes from the corner and then you just push that guy out to that corner. But
you
the
said
Pacers,
scram switch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually it comes from the corner. Like, the play I have in my head is actually a Cavs play where Tatum's up top. It was Cavs Celtics. Tatum's up top. They do a pick and roll. Jared Allen's defending the right corner. Porzingis gets the switch onto Garland, and then Garland just rotates to the strong side corner while Allen comes to pick up the post up with Porzingis.
Yep.
The problem is the Pacers play Turner from the slot. So where's the scram switch coming from? You can't just have a guy sprint from the other wing off of a 40% shooter to come pick up a post up on the right corner.
Yeah.
Like, what?
And that's where like the personnel like doesn't match the like tactical stuff too. Because I'm so glad you said that. Rick Carlisle's like one of the better coaches in the league in terms of like their offensive spacing and like just organization. Like I think of Rick, I think of Quinn like immediately on top of my head. Like Joe Mazzulla actually kind of falls into the same category. To where based off of how they're bigs, and Quinn's actually super interesting because Ayeka is shooting more threes now, but like they were doing some of this stuff with Capella, who is not a shooting threat whatsoever. But still, like having your big spaced from the slot just changes some things like rotationally for opposing defenses. So that's why, like, again, my mind immediately went to we're just gonna try to outgun you,
right?
But the problem is like I don't like any of these. Like Dame and Giannis don't have like a functional. A completely functional 2-man game. Like,
we miss each other so much.
Yeah, to where you can't even punish them for. You can't even punish the Pacers for, like, for them having to guard your 2 best players consistently because your 2 best players are gonna miss each other. And then if we're saying then okay, cool. I mean, we're going Dame, Bobby Portis pick and roll. Okay. Or are we going Dame ISO and Giannis ISO? Okay, go get 50. And these other guys we just don't care about. And then with Dame, I trust Nembhard and Aaron Nesmith a lot at the point of attack. So that's
kind of how I feel like the best scenario for a Bucks win is you get as much offense on the floor as you can, and you just have to win the math battle from 3. You have to get a lot of threes up, I think. And then just like Giannis do his thing, continue to average 35 on 68% from 2. And then everyone else just has to be gunning is basically where my head's at. Like, you need Giannis and Dame both at, like, peak performance to win this series. And also, like, I don't want to take away... Like, they made Game 2 really interesting. That came down to the wire.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Pacers walk out of their home court 2-0. Everything... They're in the position they want to be in. By the way, just got a notification. Jalen Brunson named Clutch Player of the Year, which is a beautiful segue to Knicks Pistons, which has been an awesome first 2 games. What are your thoughts on Knicks Pistons?
Cade's a hooper, even though he shouldn't be considered for most improved player. Cade's a hooper.
Yeah,
especially like watching Game 2. Like, there's just nothing they can do to stop him from getting to those spots.
I think Game 2 was like a big development in my eyes from Cade, where it's like we always knew the surgical half court stuff was there. That's been there for years now. the question with Cade in terms of like his ceiling as a creator to me always kind of relied on, will he add the transition stuff? Like, will he be able to push pace like some of these other guys? And game 2 was all about grab and go, run out, beat the defense before they can set up. And he just got, like, he was a one-man fast break in that game. I know you saw the play where he goes behind his back, then dunks and points at Melo on the sideline. Yep. Beautiful, beautiful stuff from Cade playing in early offense. But to me, this game was all about Detroit's defense, man. Like, putting Jalen Duren on Josh Hart. Jalen Duren, by the way, just changed everything on both ends in this game. He was incredible. He was incredible as a rim runner on the glass, as a rim protector. He had a lot of really good hedges. Shout out to Jalen Duren because he was absolutely phenomenal. Asar was really, really good and really disruptive until he fouled out, and that's a discussion that people are having on Twitter about the circumstances behind him fouling out. Tobias Harris has looked really good in my opinion, and I don't know whether to credit it more to Detroit's defensive execution or New York having the most vanilla offense ever. Like, they did absolutely nothing for Cat in the second half after starting the series with 6 really good quarters. Yeah. Like, quarter 1 of game 1 to quarter 2 of game 2, Cat is just a lethal offensive weapon. Attacking mismatches out of the post, attacking out of pick and pop, trailing in early offense. And then second half of game 2 rolls around. He has Tobias Harris on him the entire half, and I don't think they ran a single play for him at all. And it's like, why? What is the point of going and getting a guy like Cat to trade for if you're going to reduce his impact to that of a spot-up shooter? Like, he was basically DiVincenzo in that second half.
Yeah.
It's like, why trade for him?
I like Tibbs. I think that Tibbs, I think every team needs at some point in their lifespan as an organization needs a floor-raising coach. I think the Knicks, where they were at when Tibbs got the job, like, they absolutely needed a guy like Tibbs at that
2021 season specifically. Yeah.
They desperately needed Tibbs. But like, I think it's time to like move on from Tibbs. I don't typically like saying like we need to like kind of like move on from a certain coach, especially because they get fired for much less at this point. Like, godly. But I do think for the Knicks franchise like hit their ceiling as a team, I think you need to experiment and go elsewhere and either find this. There's 2 things, honestly. I think, one, they need to, like, reinvent the offense and find a more innovative offensive mind out there that could come in and work with Brunson and get Cat and the pieces they have here. Because I think, legitimately, they have a good offensive nucleus, but, like, Cat, like you said, just gets relegated in the second half of a playoff game. And this consistently happens with Tibbs offenses, where it just turns into super vanilla and, all right, we have a star player, please win us the game, basically. And that's been Brunson for him for the past couple of years. But for that reason, like, they're defensively flawed from a personnel standpoint, and then offensively they're not creative or innovative at all, to the point that there's no shot I'm taking them over any of the Eastern Conference powerhouses. I would very comfortably take the Cavs and the Celtics over them. And then I would probably take the Pacers over the next 2 in a 7-game series. So
easily to me. Yeah, I'd easily take the Pacers in a 7-game series. Yeah, and it comes down to like you said, they have a flawed defensive personnel, so their identity almost has to be their offense. And then they just end up playing Brunson ball, and Brunson's so good that he can make that work most of the time. But we saw it in that game. Like, he was kind of rattled. That was the most rattled I've seen Brunson, was game 2 against Detroit. Like, we've seen poor shooting nights from Brunson. First 2 games of the Philly series last year is a great example where he just was emptying the clip and not hitting anything. But in terms of looking rattled,
people were getting their takes off after those games. Oh, good God.
They sure were. They sure were. But, like, in terms of just looking uncomfortable, like, we always talk about how one of Brunson's superpowers is that he takes such good care of the ball and makes a lot of good decisions. Like, uncharacteristic turnovers, looking for the foul over looking to create on half of the possessions because he just can't get anywhere. And some of it is Detroit's physicality, their length. But some of it also is just, like, Brunson being overtasked offensively. I saw a tweet from, I want to say it was Isaac from the Deep 3 podcast.
Shout out Isaac.
Shout out Isaac. It was the most creative thing in the Knicks offense is Josh Hart transition.
That's
like letting
nasty.
him push the ball in transition, and that's it. That's it. They don't do anything. They don't do any weird things to attack matchups. Like Jalen Duren's on Josh Hart, and I don't think I saw one like attempt to change that or attack that.
And really quickly with the foul baiting, there's a possession because I just pulled it up actually. Pretty early in the first quarter. There's like 8:17 left. Brunson gets a ball screen. He's guarded by Asar, and he does like his typical Brunson thing of putting his defender in jail. Asar is literally on his hip, and you would think that this is like lining up for Brunson to go to the floater or try to get to the rim. I mean, Duren's starting to rotate over, but instead, mid jump, he just throws this like unorthodox pass behind his body to Josh Hart, and he just throws the ball away.
Yeah, I know exactly. I know which player you're talking about, and that's just uncharacteristic from Brunson, who usually is a damn near perfect decision maker. Even if he is score first, like it's a different type of decision making than Halliburton, but it's the same goal where you're getting a shot up.
Yeah,
and that didn't look like the normal Brunson in game 2.
Asar's awesome.
Yeah, he is. And this makes me kind of rethink the series because there's a chance Brunson adjusts and is back to normal game 3, game 4. But there's also a part of me that's like, if you account for the Knicks' really vanilla offensive approach and over-reliance on Brunson, with Brunson looking this rattled and making uncharacteristic mistakes, where do you get your offense from in this series? Because the Pistons are getting their offense from Cade in transition. They still have yet to have like that gunning game from Beasley or Hardaway, I feel like. Tobias Harris had a huge game 1, attacking mismatches, like specifically Josh Hart in the mid-post. Yeah, I don't know. How do you feel about the series right now?
This is a cop-out, but I really want to see game 3. Is game 3 right?
I agree. No, it's tomorrow.
That's unfortunate.
That would be a fire game. Yeah, I'd be hyped. And it's in Detroit. Oh my God, I can't wait for a playoff game in Detroit, dude. I tweeted that during the game. I was like, man, I need a playoff game in Detroit.
That's going to be lit. I kind of want to see game 3 because I want to give the Knicks, maybe more specifically like a Brunson, benefit of the doubt and waiting to see if he can adjust. Because some of these turnovers, some of these mistakes from Brunson are like we've kind of said, are so uncharacteristic.
Right.
And so much like I'm so uncomfortable to where I'm like foul baiting or trying to, like, there's one possession where he is attempting to flail, but the defender just strips him clean of the ball, and then it turns into a turnover for Brunson. Like, I'm hoping that if Brunson isn't able to adjust and the Knicks offense continues to be this bland and just meh, there's a pathway to the Pistons be able to win this series, and it's, to your credit, Cade be able to show more ability to just push pace the transition and get you, and it's so important to be able to do that because that's going to be your easiest form of offense more times than not.
Yeah.
Actually, not more times than not. That's going to be your easiest form of offense. Every time. The ability to just push the ball in transition. Like you said, we haven't gotten, like, Beasley's actually shot the ball really, really poorly through the first 2 games. So I say he shot, 1 for 8 from 3 in game 2?
I think it's something like that.
So I almost feel like you're going to get one of these games where Beasley is just mag the ball and Beasley hits 6 threes.
Yeah.
I think it's almost I don't want to say a lock, but like I feel really strongly they get 1 in Detroit at the very least. So now from the Knicks standpoint, I think best case scenario is we're going back to New York 2-2, and at that point, I think Detroit's gonna have all the momentum, and I still don't think there's a Cade stopper. Honestly,
there isn't one. Like, OG's your best option, but Cade is still going to do his thing. Also, like, on the Cade point, he was really struggling with Cat at the level of screens in game 1. Like, the hedges were really forcing him into uncharacteristic errors. And one thing I loved to see from the Pistons in game 2 was getting him on the move first. Like Chicago action, stuff of that, like getting him moving off of handoffs and off of down screens as opposed to just a stationary pick and roll. Because now Cat is forced to make a tougher rotation, and Cade's already got the step on his defender. So it's a much smoother transition into, I'm going to drive, or I'm going to pull up for this jumper, or I'm going to make the quick pass to the short roll. And I think Cade looked a lot more comfortable in the half court in game 2 as well, in addition to being just a one-man fast break army. It's interesting to think about this series now with 1-1 and then everything we've seen. Because, like you said, Brunson could just figure it out. Like, we've seen players look uncomfortable at the beginning. I think it's a LeBron staple to just get better as the series goes on. And Brunson kind of strikes me as that type of player who's going to figure it out as the series goes on, as opposed to, like, going back to the Philly series, really bad in game 1 and 2. And then for the rest of the series, is basically just like an efficient 40-point per game scorer. And then what do you do with that? And I don't think we're going to see that against Detroit. But it's the same kind of line of thinking. Also, can I ask you, is there a reason, and this even goes back to Minnesota, I feel like, with Cat. Is there a reason he never is used on it with inverted ball screens? Like, do you know how dangerous it is to be a 40% three-point shooting 7-foot center who can attack down? Get this guy a freaking back screen from a guard. And let him just go. Like, you'll probably get an offensive foul occasionally, but besides that, what the heck?
He's gonna come off the screen and just run over the defender.
That's gonna happen once or twice, and you'll live with it. But like on the other possessions, what do you do?
That's funny. Yeah, because like, why wouldn't you at least experiment with like a Cat Brunson inverted ball screen?
Right, especially if Schroeder's on Brunson. Because if it's a star, they're just gonna switch that. But like, if it's Schroeder, what is he going to do?
Yeah.
He's going to hedge really aggressively, try and get an offensive foul. Worst case scenario, Cat picks up the ball and gives it back to Brunson. And now he has like an advantage to attack off the catch. Or even a inverted ball screen from Hart to get Duran switched back onto Cat.
Yeah.
And then set up your offense.
And you go from there. So, but that's what I'm saying. Like, there's just nothing creative at all about the Knicks offense to where
I agree.
Like, you're not making I think from an offensive perspective, and this is why like I take the approach in terms of like preparing for games or series or whatever, mostly from like a defense first, like how we stop you. Because one, I'm so confident in my offensive guys in terms of A, me be able to like make their jobs as easy as possible, and two, just their ability to just like, okay, the other team's not gonna be able to stop me. But like the first part's the most important part. Like, I'm going to make their job as easy as possible. And the Knicks just don't do that. It feels like everything is get out the mud. And it's funny because we said that with the Rockets Warriors series, but not everything has to be get out the mud. That series is get out the mud because it's like straight from the mid 2000s in terms of defense and grittiness and offensive rebounding and I can't even remember what I was about to say. But still, like, it's just tough. That's what we mean by get out the mud. You have Steppen and Jimmy or whatever, it will be fine. But not everything has to be that. And the Knicks just don't do anything to, like improve the quality of life for Jalen Brunson on the offensive end, if that makes sense.
I 100% agree. And that's what makes this series tough to project moving forward. Because I think, like, dude, I do think there's something to be said about the Pistons giving up a 21-0 run in the fourth quarter of Game 1. Like, that is alarming. But can we also talk about the fact that the Knicks are a 21-0 run away from going 0-2 on their home court and going into Detroit down 0-2? Like, is that not crazy to think about? I still... My initial prediction was Knicks in 6. After what we saw in Games 1 and 2, I'm moving that to Knicks in 7. I'm still leaning towards the team that just has more offensive talent, and I think there are ways they can figure it out, as opposed to Detroit. Like, if Detroit just has this exact game they had in Game 2 for 5 more games, I feel like the Knicks win more times than they lose, if that makes sense.
I'm still going to say Knicks in 6.
Okay.
Honestly, for that reason, where I think the Knicks just still have too much offensive firepower. And I still don't think the Knicks can stop Cade. I think there'll be a game where, probably Game 3 or Game 4 in Detroit, where Beasley has magnet ball, Tim Hardaway Jr. can't miss. But at the end of the day, like, I still think the Knicks are just a more talented team, and against a team like the Pistons, I think that'll be enough.
I agree.
But it'll be like it'll be a grinded out 6 games. Like, every game will be close.
Now let's talk about the last series that is just a really hard one to predict. We have no idea what's going to happen. Celtics Magic. Tatum's actually out tonight, so maybe if the Magic do steal a game, tonight's the night, probably. I still don't think they will. I still think it's a sweep, personally. And in game one, we basically just saw everything we talked about before the series. It was Paolo Banchero looked amazing, like attacking mismatches out of the mid post, getting to the rim, utilizing the mid range, doing everything Paolo Banchero does well, and it just didn't matter even in the slightest. It was just an easy win for the Celtics. So they're just a way better team. It's just that simple.
You can't beat the Celtics if you have more than one non-shooter on the floor. I feel like that's just like it's for one, that's almost a rule of thumb in the NBA in general. Having multiple non-shooters on the floor is in general probably a death sentence, but it's whatever is worse than a death sentence against the Celtics.
Yeah, and like I think Franz looked okay.
Yes, Franz was fine.
And like Corey Joseph looked pretty cool. But it's like Corey Joseph as your starting guard against Derek White and Drew Holiday.
Yeah,
it's a mismatch. By the way, I found an interesting stat today. I was paroling. Is paroling a word? I'll say patrolling.
Patrolling.
I don't even know. Patrolling. I was patrolling Basketball Reference today, just looking for some interesting playoff numbers. Paolo Banchero played 42 minutes in game one. In his 42 minutes, they had a -6 net rating. So it's like a calm little, 2 versus 7. Like we're losing with Paolo on the floor. You want to know? Take a guess what the net rating was in the 6 minutes with him on the bench.
-30.
Way worse.
-70.
Way worse.
-140.
135. -135. They had a 54 offensive rating and a 190 defensive rating. And obviously that's just like the smallest sample size ever, completely irrelevant. But I thought it was like the funniest stat that kind of highlighted how the game went, where it was like if Paolo wasn't scoring, the Magic had nothing going for them at all.
Yeah. And like we said, like I think if Bucks Pacers was the one we most accurately predicted, this might be a close second because we both had Boston sweeping, I think. I know I did. Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
So we both picked Boston to sweep, but we also acknowledged like Paolo's like awesome, and if Paolo has a great series, it won't surprise me. But like nobody else on this team. I mean, Franz too. We accounted for Franz, but this is honestly how I think the series is going to go, where Paolo has insane numbers, and I think the encouraging sign for Paolo is he's still being this ultra aggressive downhill like mismatch hunter, while also sprinkling in the midi in the 3-point game. Shot 4 for 7 from 3 in game 1. We'll see how game 2 goes tonight. I think Boston wins 4-0. I think there'll be a couple more. I wouldn't be surprised if game 2 is closer on scoreboard wise, but I think Boston has too many offensive weapons and too many shooters that Orlando has to potentially worry about, like a Derek White who's 7 threes, Pam Pritchard who hit 4 threes and shout out to the 6th man of the year. Whereas Orlando, like, there is nobody that is putting any sort of resistance into Boston's like defense.
Yeah. And it really is that simple. So if you're someone who's just looking to get a Paolo agenda off, now's the time, because he's gonna go up against an elite, but you see the jersey behind Sean, you see it. Elite Boston defense. He's gonna put up gaudy numbers, and the Magic are gonna give him no help. And we're gonna look back at this series years from now and be like, remember when Paolo torched the Celtics? And we're gonna be able to rewrite history on that. So shout out to Paolo. Shout out to the Magic, but I still think this is a 4-game series. And the only scenario I see them stealing a game is like if Boston just lets their foot off the gas after going up 3-0, or tonight without Tatum, because the Celtics do rely on Tatum pretty heavily for their shot creation. And Orlando is a very, very good defensive team. So if Boston's offense gets bottled up, like Porzingis was a non-factor in game 1, if Boston's offense gets bottled up, wouldn't shock me. But Paolo had one of the best games I've seen him play from a scoring standpoint, and the Magic had 86 points as a team. It's just not good. You got anything else you want to add on any of these matchups?
Not really. I guess who would be the team that you feel like has changed your opinion of them one way or another the most through 1 to 2 games? If that makes sense.
Ooh, that's tough. That's tough. Maybe it's like I almost feel like I don't feel super differently about any of the teams. Like I kind of knew about the Knicks' vanilla offensive concerns and their defensive personnel. Detroit, I feel like had this gear defensively, and then Cade playing in transition, that type of stuff. I think it might be Cleveland just reassuring my confidence in them, because when they kind of started to slide at the end of the season, it was like, is this a fluke, or are they like deteriorating at the worst possible time? Like, is this the 2023 Nuggets where they just take their foot off the gas, they secure the 1 seed, or are there concerns here? And then game 1 they just come out and it's like, oh yeah, they're just as good as they were at the beginning of the season. So I'd say Cleveland. What about you?
Maybe Indiana or Cleveland. Indiana more so because like Nimhard continuing to prove that he's just a playoff riser.
That's fair.
And Hallie looking good despite the 3, or just the shot in general not really falling for him at the particular moment. I might have to go to a game. Like that's like a perfect game, like Cleveland and then Indiana. I mean, Indiana probably better. It's less driving, but
yeah,
still that would be elite.
That would be fine. And also, both of those environments are elite right now.
Yeah.
Elite. But that's going to wrap up today's episode. We really appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure to follow us on social media. Sean's at Twitter at Sean_DAVI. He's on Instagram at Sean_Davis23. His YouTube channels are The Sports Headline Show and the Los Angeles Lakers Network. If you are watching on YouTube, all of those links are in the description for you guys, as well as my stuff. Tyler Britton on all platforms if you want my personal account, and if you want my basketball content, of course, Hoop Venue on all platforms. Once again, we really appreciate you guys listening to this episode, and we will catch you guys next time for episode number 40.